Podcast City Network.
What is up, everyone? Welcome back to episode 162 of the Nest Podcast. I'm the People's Champ, Brandon Brewer. The Zach Bill is here joining me tonight. And Zach, we are 1 day removed from week 1 of 18 of this year's NFL schedule. How'd your fantasy team do?
They're doing pretty good. We're sitting on the lead right now. As long as the Ravens running back doesn't go completely off tonight, I should be good. Two of my wide receivers got me 30 points, 30 plus for Tyreek Hill. So yeah, great day for fantasy. Great overall, week 1. It was really enjoyable to watch football. Lots of interesting stuff happened that I'm sure we'll get into. And it was just an exciting entire day.
Yeah. I agree with you. It was an absolute blast to be watching football once again. I spent all Sunday glued in front of my TV, just enjoying the day. And the running back that you speak of for the Ravens, that would be Tyson Hill or
Williams
Tyson Williams. Yeah, it's hard for me to keep track because they've had a new RB1 every other day, it seems like. So this is a guy that started the season as the third string running back for the Baltimore Ravens. And now he's been propelled to the RB1 position. I can't imagine he's taken too many first team reps during the preseason and their training camp and all that stuff. So I think you'll be all right. Me, on the other hand, I've got to hope that Lamar Jackson, who will be the primary focal point of this Ravens offense, got to hope that he's held to less than 39 points, and I'll come home with a dub in week 1.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be a tall order for him too, I think.
39's hard.
Even if he has a good game, yeah, like you said, 39 is going to be hard to get. So, yeah, we're sitting pretty. Your team is, second highest in points in our league. Harvey had a great week this week. So
he killed it this week. He almost hit 200 points. It's wild to think about, but he might have a juggernaut of a roster.
Yeah.
It is what it is. Of course, this is week 1, and we're going to recap some of those games that we all watched and give our thoughts and our takes on that. What teams performed and over exceeded our expectations and which teams were absolute busts. And then speaking of booms and busts, we're going to get into our fantasy booms and busts. That's a returning segment that we had last year. So we're going to get back into that again. And as you see, I'm still repping the Patriots. I haven't given up hope. I know, week 1, they didn't really do so hot. They didn't walk out with the win, at least. And they're now 0-1 on the season, but I'm going to go on record and guarantee victory next week.
Yeah, I mean, I think this was no cause for concern, in my opinion. The Dolphins have beat the Patriots in the past. It's one of those teams that they play twice a year, and if you do that for so long, you get acclimated to how certain teams run things, and you can kind of guess as to what they're going to do, and you could potentially get a win every now and then. I mean, and let's kind of face it, the Dolphins aren't as terrible as they have been in the past 2-3 decades. They have a decent team, and I think there's still some things that the Patriots need to work out. I mean, they have a brand new quarterback. I mean, this is a rookie quarterback who, like we've said for a couple of weeks now, has looked great in preseason, but when the lights are on and when everybody's playing for real, it's a whole different ball game. And he didn't look bad. So I think there's nothing but high hopes for this team.
Yeah, no, I agree. And, to your point, the Miami Dolphins are a team that last year they were a 10-win team. This is a team that was 1 win or 1 Cleveland Browns loss away from being a playoff team. And the Pats last year, they were 7-9 and didn't really have a lot going for them. This year, they bring in a brand new quarterback, a rookie quarterback who, by the way, Mac Jones set the NFL record for the highest completion percentage for a rookie quarterback starting his first ever NFL game.
Oh, wow.
Not a bad way to start your career, even if you're going to take the L. But they also brought in 2 brand new tight ends in Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry. They've got Nelson Aguilar, who is the new guy in the receiving core. They've got some defensive guys that are trying to get back acclimated to the Patriot way, and Kyle Van Noy and some of the other guys out there. They're without Gilmore as their shutdown corner. So there's a lot of moving parts to this Patriots team. I think they'll be just fine. Judon looked like he was an absolute monster on the defensive end, and he's going to be bowling over offensive lines all season. There was one double team against the Dolphins where he just pushed both of them back and nearly got the sack. They're going to be fun to watch. They are going to win a lot of games. And like I said, I personally guarantee a win next week against the Jets.
Hey, there you go. Take that to the bank. And I definitely agree. I think the questions, if there were any, would tend to be on the defense. Although I think I agree with you. There's a lot of little special plays that they were able to complete in the game. But you got to think this is a team that had, I can't remember the exact number of people that opted out last year that were mainly on the defense. Those players haven't played NFL football at this caliber in a whole year. So it's a little bit to get used to. And I think that's probably why you saw it to be such a close game. And I think when you have a rookie quarterback, he did as good as you possibly could. I mean, like you said, that completion rating is amazing. That's usually what causes issues for young quarterbacks is they get nervous. They can't handle the pressure necessarily. The defenses that they face are something they never seen before, and they don't have as much success. For Mac Jones to do as well as he did was a great sign. I think they can figure this stuff out pretty easily. And it's not uncommon for good teams to kind of have a little rough go at it and then go on to be great for the rest of the season.
Yeah, to put it into perspective, he was 29 of 39 passing. That's 74.4%. Not too shabby for 281 yards and a touchdown. Compared to the other notable rookie quarterbacks out there, Lawrence went 28 of 51. That's a 54.9% clip. 332 yards, but he had 3 touchdowns and 3 picks. The touchdowns came late in garbage time. Zach Wilson, the other guy that a lot of people are saying could be rookie of the year contender. He went 20 for 37. That's 54.1% for 258 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 pick. So he did all right. I posted a poll out on Twitter, and a lot of people were voting on that. So I appreciate that. If you haven't, you've got about another hour or so to do so. Go out to @BrandonBrua and vote on that poll. But right now, it's between Mac and Zach Wilson, who people think had the best performance. Me personally, I think it was a runaway for Mac Jones, but I think a lot of people just won't vote for a Patriots quarterback ever.
Yeah, I definitely think that. I think Zach Wilson is going to fail because he's a Jet. He might be good, and I think we talked about this last week or on C2C, but I think he's kind of hindered just by the fact that he's on the Jets. I mean, that potentially is the reason that Sam Darnold wasn't great. That team is just not good, and it doesn't matter how many first round picks they get. They have issues, and I think he's going to have to deal with those. For a guy who's playing on a not so great team, he did well for sure. And you got to give credit where credit's due there, but I completely agree. I think it's a runaway with Mac Jones. He's playing like a veteran of the league, and it was his first game out there, and I think the sky's the limit here.
Yeah, it was pretty great to see. Great for us, obviously, as Pats fans to see that. But here's that poll that I was talking about. It's got right now Wilson at 43.1% and Jones at 36.2%. The people that voted, the 20.7% that said Lawrence had the best game, I don't even know what you guys are thinking, because he clearly did not have the best game.
It must be Jags fans.
They see the 3 touchdowns and they think, well, he was the best, but he had 3 picks long before he had his second touchdown. And like I said, his TDs came in garbage time when the defense for the Texans, of all people, had their second and third stringers in there getting some reps.
Yeah, I mean, that was a crazy game in and of itself. I didn't expect the Jags to do amazing, but I definitely expected them to be able to beat the Texans. I mean, that's one of the teams that we've been talking about forever that's just had issue after issue, and that just as a whole, the organization makes some terrible mistakes and terrible calls. But nonetheless, they were able to beat the Jags, and I think that just kind of shows why the Jags got that number 1 pick, is because they have issues themselves.
Yeah, look at the Browns. You lose long enough, you get enough number 1 picks, and eventually you're good. But is it safe to say that the Texans overperformed? They boomed yesterday.
100%, yeah. Tyrod Taylor.
So. They were up. They were up 27-7 at halftime, and like you said, Tyrod Taylor had a phenomenal, at least first half.
Right. Yeah. I mean, no one expected really much out of him. We haven't seen him in a while because obviously he got that issue with the Chargers, and then they benched him for Justin Herbert. And everyone knows that this team is surrounded by or relies on Deshaun Watson. He's obviously not going to be anywhere near the field this whole season. So this is a very good showing for him. And what kind of weapons does he have to work with? I mean, he doesn't have anyone that comes to mind that is noteworthy.
No, not really. Like Brandon Cooks had a phenomenal game with 5 receptions for 132 yards. Mark Ingram was a workhorse as their running back, 26 carries for 85 yards and a tug. But Tyrod, he was 21 of 33, so he was fairly accurate, almost 300 yards passing. So he went out there and balled. He spread the ball around. He had like 10, 12 different receivers. So he was out there doing his thing. I definitely have the Houston Texans as a boom for week 1. And, on the other side of the coin, the Jags were definitely a bust. There was a lot of expectation, a lot of hope, and a lot of hype going into their season. And for them to fall that flat, it was embarrassing. Of course, I live in Jacksonville, Florida, and the people at work today, they just were deflated. Their QB1 didn't raise the standards of the city that they expected him to. They kind of expected, like, hey, we've got QB1 now. We're going to have a parade coming through town pretty soon. It's not working out the way that they had planned.
Yeah, I think he's finally realized what the difference is here. Clemson is a whole different thing compared to this team. Like I said before, there's a reason they got that number 1 pick, and that just doesn't change overnight with one quarterback. I think also Trevor Lawrence has a lot to learn. He hasn't lost in the regular season ever until now, and I think that's going to show. Yeah, I think that's going to show. I think he knows how to play his play style. He knows that he's favored to win almost all the time. And now that's not the case. He's going to have to actually work and actually try hard and put the team on his back. I think he's been the star, obviously. He's been the star of Clemson for his entire career there, but this is different. You know what I mean? The team has struggled for a while. They don't have that defense that they famously had. And they lost Travis Etienne as a running back. So there's really not much that they can count on other than him. And it's going to be tough for him, I think. I think he'll do okay, but it's going to be a tough year, I think.
I think so too. The city of Jacksonville, however, did see the home team playing on their field come out victorious on Sunday. And that, of course, was the New Orleans Saints hosting the Green Bay Packers in Jacksonville, Florida. They, of course, were displaced due to the Hurricane Irma that went through New Orleans and caused a lot of damage and power outages and stuff. So they moved over to Jacksonville while Jacksonville was out of town. They hosted the Green Bay Packers. And did the Packers even show up? I don't think they did. I think they missed their flight.
I saw people in Packers uniforms, but that team was a shell of itself, and no one showed up. I mean, not a single person on that team showed up. Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Jones. It was insane to see. And I think someone on the newscast said that Green Bay has struggled to play in Florida, probably because they're not used to the humidity and the heat and stuff like that. I get that, but at the same time, this is football. They know how to execute. Aaron Rodgers should know how to play NFL, no matter where he plays. He was the MVP last year, and he just had a god-awful showing last night.
Eric's commenting with the frowny faces. He must have Aaron Rodgers in one of his fantasy leagues.
Uh,
But if we're talking booms and busts, we have to talk about this game a little bit because the New Orleans Saints, they boomed
oh yeah.
from the opening kickoff. And the Green Bay Packers were the biggest bust of any NFL team this weekend. The Saints offense was able to move the ball at will. They passed the ball up and down the field. They rushed very well as a team, and their defense was swarming all game long. There was nothing that the Packers could do. Aaron Rodgers, who threw 5 interceptions all of last season, threw 2 picks in this one, eventually got benched in favor of Jordan Love, who came out and looked pretty good. He went 5 of 7 for 68 yards. Not bad for his first real performance in an NFL game. But, man, the reigning MVP did not look good at all. Is this a sign of things to come for the New Orleans Saints? Are they legit with Jameis Winston under center?
He threw some amazing passes that I don't think anyone really expected him to be able to do. I mean, he looked great out there. I can't remember who it was to, but he threw a touchdown pass that was just beautiful, and it was caught so easily. It was right on the money. He looks great, and I think learning for a year under Drew Brees did him wonders. This could be their quarterback for the next good while. I mean, he looked awesome out there. He's got plenty of weapons to throw to out there. He could be amazing for years to come.
I believe that was Deontay Harris that you're thinking.
Yes,
of.
number 11.
Caught that long bomb. He had 2 receptions for 72 total yards and a touchdown. He's the one that caught the 55-yard pass.
Yeah.
But Jameis Winston, for what it's worth, he had 5 passing touchdowns, which is incredible. But he only went 14 of 20 for 148 yards. So he didn't have a lot of yardage. He had a lot of like goal line, red zone passes for touchdowns. The workhorse was Alvin Kamara, surprise, with 20 rushing attempts for 83 yards. And he also had a couple catches in there as well to help move the chains. Had a receiving touchdown, one of those little shovel passes that I don't think should technically count as a pass, but they count it that way.
Sure. Yeah, and I think that duo of them could be a huge threat for teams. I mean, you're going to have to respect both the run game. Kamara is also a receiving threat. It seems like Jameis Winston can throw down the field. They're going to be a tough offense to play against. And I don't know if their defense is all that they look like on Sunday night, or if just the Packers were just that terrible. I think they're going to have to play a few more teams for us to get a glimpse of that. But this is a great start for that Saints team, and they could definitely be in contention for the rest of the year if everything kind of keeps moving this way, because they looked great. And I think a lot of us had questions on what they were going to do and how everyone would look. Can Kamara keep this workhorse mentality and do all that kind of stuff? But they looked awesome.
For the sake of my fantasy team, I hope he can. Aaron Rodgers may be playing his way out of Green Bay if this kind of play continues before the season ends. Tyler commented and said that. Stephen A. Smith had a little hot take today saying that Aaron Rodgers just looked like he didn't care. He looked like a guy that just did not care that he was underperforming, and maybe was alluding to the fact that he might not care to even be in Green Bay anymore. Normally I have issue with a lot of things that Stephen A. Smith says, but I agree with him here, Zach. What do you think?
Yeah, I think he hit the nail on the head here. I think it was clear from even before, mini camp started and all that stuff and OTA started, he didn't show up for that kind of stuff. And I think he only showed up when they were going to start finding him. I think it's apparent that he doesn't want to be in Green Bay. And now the fact that he's showing this kind of lackluster talent on the field is even more reason to think that. What I don't understand about that is, yeah, sure, you want to get traded somewhere or whatever the case might be. Well, I don't think the best way to do that is to just look like crap out on the field. Teams want a player who's good. They're not going to give up whatever Green Bay's going to want for Aaron Rodgers if he looks like crap. I mean, I'm sure he can just turn it on for whatever team he gets traded to or whatever, but it's strange. I mean, I don't think he was happy last year either, but last year he decided to go out and throw up an MVP season. I don't see the difference in last year and this year. I mean, you typically always want to play your best, and if you're unhappy, then you should make that known, and you should kind of do whatever you can to get traded. But I don't think the answer is to just look like crap out there and just get beaten all to hell, because I don't understand what that accomplishes. It's maybe going to make them want to get rid of you more, I guess. Maybe that's his mentality, but still, it's just a bad look all around.
Yeah, no, I agree. You can't put it all on Rodgers, though. This is a team sport in the NFL, and Rodgers, although he is the quarterback, he is the captain of this team, the captain of this ship. Other guys that are used to being top performers didn't show up either. Aaron Jones only had 9 rushing yards. This was a dude that was a 1,000-yard rusher last season. Devontae Adams caught 5 passes for only 56 yards. That's all he did. The big guy in the offseason that they acquired at Rodgers' bequest, Randall Cobb, he had 1 reception for 32 yards. That's all. Like, none of these guys that were supposed to make a difference showed up to make that difference. And for that, I think the Green Bay Packers are our bust of the week.
Yeah. I wonder if the other guys having a lackluster outing was a consequence of Aaron Rodgers' just, bad taste for the team and the ill will between him and the team. I wonder if that's kind of spread throughout the locker room.
Maybe, but I also, I think we've got to tip the cap to the New Orleans Saints defense. They came in with a game plan to not lose, and they executed on defense, they executed on offense, but they were able to shut down the playmakers. We've talked about it time and time again that if you can shut down Adams, if you can shut down Jones, what else do they really have? Randall Cobb isn't going to save the season for the Green Bay Packers. I'm sorry. It's just not going to happen. This isn't, 2015.
Right. Yeah, I can see that.
And speaking of defense, another team that has a fantastic defense that shut down a prolific offense is the Arizona Cardinals. This is a defense that nobody has been talking about at all, us included. We've been sleeping on them, but we should have known better. Chandler Jones, J.J. Watt, those two monsters teaming up together. How did we not see their defense being this formidable?
Yeah, I think for me, the fact that J.J. Watt is beaten up and he's a little older didn't really move the needle for me so much whenever he moved to Arizona. But I think clearly you have to respect them, because Chandler Jones on one end and J.J. Watt on the other end is a scary defensive line.
Here's why J.J. Watt is still effective in this defense as opposed to the majority of other defenses around the league. You can't double team both of them at the same time.
Yeah.
So on any given play, one of them are going to be free to be able to have one-on-one coverage, and they're going to be able to beat that. Chandler Jones had 5 sacks in this game. Wow. He was able to get to Ryan Tannehill. I believe it was 3 times in the first quarter, which is unheard of. It tied a Cardinals team record for most sacks in a game. He's clearly the front runner for the sacks leader on the season right now. And this defense, talking about fantasy, they're only owned 5% of ESPN leagues. This is a defense that could very, very easily be a top 10, top 5 even defense in the NFL. And they're only rostered in 5% of ESPN leagues. Wow. If you're out there and you need a better defense, say your defense sucked it up and scored you negative points or whatever, you might want to consider grabbing these guys, because they're going to put up a lot of points.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you bring up a very good point there about the double teaming of J.J. Watt. If
Those
you think
are the only kind I have, Zach.
I should know that by now. If you think about his heyday back whenever he was just a dominant force with Texas, he had Jadeveon Clowney on the other side of the field, or on the other side of the line. There's no way you could double team those guys. So either one of them was probably going to break through and make a big play. He has that same kind of setup here with Chandler Jones, and I think it's going to be great. And like you said, this was something that almost everybody, I can't recollect anybody talking. The Cardinals are going to have a next level defense this year. we all kind of just, oh yeah, JJ Watt's moving to Arizona, try to get a Super Bowl ring. No one really thought that this was going to be this good.
I think part of the reason is because Chandler Jones didn't really play last year. He was limited to only like 5 or 6 games because he was having a torn bicep injury. And we kind of forgot how dominant this guy is. He's out there on a contract year. He wants to get paid. And if he's putting up 5 sacks a game, which I don't think he'll get every game, but if he's putting up numbers like that, this dude's going to get 28 mil a year type numbers. He's going to get monster figures. TJ Watt's highest paid defensive lineman title is probably only going to last 1 year because Chandler Jones.
Yeah, I could see that for sure. And I think if the Cardinals are all in on trying to make a Super Bowl push, you definitely have to keep this guy around because that's a cornerstone of your defense. Obviously, they have their offensive weapons packaged up, and they're pretty set on that end. But if they can have a good defense like they have right now and keep that for a while, it's going to be a very tough team to beat.
Yeah. How funny is it on a week when Kyler Murray had 5 total touchdowns? We have taken this long talking about the Arizona Cardinals to even mention their offense.
Right.
That's how good this defense is. And, just to beat the drum a little bit more, they were playing the Tennessee Titans. They were playing Derrick Henry, King Henry, 2,000-yard rusher Derrick Henry, and he was limited to only 58 yards.
Yeah, I mean,
go ahead.
That offense just has weapons all over the place. They just signed Julio Jones. Ryan Tannehill is looked better than he ever has in his entire career. You mentioned Derrick Henry, just an absolute tank of a running back. They basically just negated all of that, and I don't think anyone saw that coming. Me personally, when I drafted Ryan Tannehill to be my quarterback, I thought this guy's got weapons all over the place. He's got a running back that can run for days. It's going to be just money for him, and they almost basically just muted that whole offense, and that's a stellar offense.
Don't hit the panic button just yet on the Tennessee Titans. Yeah, they were a bust this week. They couldn't get anything going, but they're not going to face this caliber of defense for the rest of the season.
Sure.
Next week, they'll be fine. They'll get the offense moving. A.J. Brown will get his touches. Julio will get his touches. Henry will probably have close to 100 yards. So if you're a fantasy owner of any of those guys, don't be hitting the panic button just yet.
Yeah.
But this week was something else. Tyler's commenting that Matthew Stafford put up solid numbers and helped him win his money league. Well, we're not the type of guys to say we told you so, but we told you so.
Yeah.
We've been saying that Matthew Stafford was going to be a stud since the moment he was traded to the LA Rams. He was phenomenal in Detroit. He was great. He was a diamond in a turd mine. And now that he's out of there, he's going to really shine. The LA Rams are going to be a force to be reckoned with. They've got offensive talent with Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, and they've got that defensive Aaron Donald. They've got Jalen Ramsey, who's one of the premier corners in all the league. This team is going to be a force to be reckoned with. And the NFC West, we talked about how they looked real strong. Every single team out there won this week.
Right. Yeah, it's huge. And that one pass that Stafford made that you and I were texting about, it was just a thing of beauty, just almost like that Jameis Winston throw. It was perfect. And I think he's been just hiding, not necessarily hiding, but he's just been trapped in a terrible team in Detroit, and he's finally been able to break free of that. And this team is going to be very scary. I think the Rams are going to be super scary. Kind of like the Cardinals, they have great players on both sides of the field, and they're a whole package team. I mean, they really, in my opinion, they don't really have many holes anywhere. So this pickup of Matt Stafford is probably going to be the thing that sets them apart from that juggernaut of a division out there, because like you said, they all won. All those teams look great. Obviously, Russell Wilson looks great at the beginning of the year, and then he kind of trails off or whatever. Nonetheless, all those teams are very good.
Yeah, and I heard McAfee earlier today say that now that Matt Stafford's gone out there and had a great game with the Rams, that everybody's going to be saying like, oh, that's what we were telling you, and hyping it up like they knew that this was going to happen. Check the tape, bub. We have been saying it for weeks now. This is something that we stand by. I'm so strong on it. I drafted him in one of my fantasy leagues as my quarterback. I said, oh, you're still here in the 9th round. You're coming with me, Matthew Stafford, and we're going to win us a championship.
Yeah, that's an amazing pick for him.
That ticks me off about McAfee trying to take credit for it all, though.
Yeah, well,
we've been saying it a long time. San Francisco 49ers staying in that same division. They had a pretty good game. I wouldn't necessarily call them a boom because of who they were playing and all that stuff, but they look good. They're healthy again, and that's scary for a lot of teams. Trey Lance did get to come into the game early. He went 1 for 1 on passing with a touchdown. So in his career, he is 100% on passing touchdowns.
There you go.
Not a bad start. It was just a little 5-yard little dink or whatever to the end zone, but hey, it counts. That's your first one, kid. Enjoy it. Garoppolo fumbled a snap, so that's got the 49ers fans already, leaning more towards Trey Lance. We'll see what happens. But look out, league. The 49ers are back too, as long as they can stay healthy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a team that could cause some trouble for people. I mean, they've been to the Super Bowl here recently, so yeah, they've definitely really haven't lost a step. That's for sure.
Yeah. Let's see. We talked about the Patriots already. Yeah, that to go back to them, that fumble as they were pushing in for that last score. They lost 17-16. They lost by 1 point. They had the ball on the 10-yard line. If they could have just held on to the ball, they could have kicked the field goal and won the game.
Yeah.
They tried to push in. Damian Harris fumbled on the 10-yard line. The Dolphins recovered. They ate the rest of the clock. It is what it is. Should have been a victory, but it wasn't. 8 penalties for 84 yards didn't help out at all either. That's a very non-Belichickian football team, and I think that's something they're going to address and move forward with. But let's talk about fantasy booms and busts. This is a segment that we're bringing back from last year because, frankly, we enjoyed it and we had a lot of fun with it last year. We get to talk trash about some guys and we get to praise other guys that might not normally get our praise or our attention. And for me, starting in the quarterback position, a guy that we've already talked about a little bit on tonight's show, Jameis Winston was a boom. This is a guy that I picked up in our draft in our Serious League in the 14th round as my backup quarterback, and he outperformed my starting quarterback this week. He had 29.62 points when he was only projected about 14. Of course, I mentioned that he went 14 of 20 for 148 yards, 5 touchdowns. By the way, kids, he's only rostered in 26% of ESPN leagues. So if you need a quarterback, say maybe your quarterback might not be that reliable, Aaron Rodgers, this is a guy that you could pick up.
Yeah, absolutely. He's a great pick. I'm going to go ahead and pick your starting quarterback as my boom in Tom Brady, a guy that we've talked about before who can be hit or miss on fantasy. He was a total hit this week, and minus 2 interceptions, he would have been stellar. 379 yards and 4 touchdowns. This old man can still do it. He's got tons of weapons out there to throw to. It was a great week for him. I look for him to have several other weeks like this. It's not going to be every week, like you said. He gets beat up at sometimes, and sometimes it just doesn't work for him. But this week he was great. And for a guy who's as old as he is, it's still so unreal that he's as successful at his age as he is.
Yep. And next week should be a good one for Tom Brady as well. If you're a Tom Brady owner, they go and play the Atlanta Falcons. And that's a team that does like to give up a lot of passing yardage. Speaking of the Falcons, my bust quarterback for the week is Matt Ryan. A veteran quarterback of the league, only posted 7.36 points. He's got Calvin Ridley, who's supposed to be his stud. He's got that new shiny toy in Kyle Pitts that he barely was able to get the ball to. When it was all said and done, he went 21 of 35 for 164 yards and not a single touchdown. Not very good, Mr. Ryan.
No, that team is another one that just has had consistent issues, year after year, and I think you're going to see more of that. My bust for the week at quarterback should be no shock to anyone, Aaron Rodgers. I mean, this guy was probably one of the first 2 or 3 quarterbacks to be drafted, and people expected a lot of points out of him. Last year, he had a great year. At least for this week, he was terrible. He posted 1.32 points, 133 yards, and 2 interceptions. It's just like you said earlier. It's like he wasn't even there. This is a guy who should be getting you 20, 25, 30 points. Not going to cut it. And if this is your starter, you might want to look at other options, because I think this might continue. If it's true that he's just putting up a stink and he's throwing his hands up in the air and saying, I don't care, draft me, it's not going to be great. It's hard to say at this point, but if this trend continues, it's not going to be a good year.
Yeah, no, I agree. What about your running back? What running back did boom for you this week?
Let's see. Christian McCaffrey obviously is probably the highest for points wise, but I think that's not necessarily a big boom. For me, I think it's DeAndre Swift, running back for the Lions. A guy that we mentioned on our sleepers episode of C2C as a guy who's going to be late round pick. He could be a good flex option. He put up 24 points. He had a receiving touchdown and 39 yards. Not many people expect anything out of Detroit Lions players, but this guy did very good for the expectations he had, which were probably low for the most people.
Yeah, no, I agree. Swift was a pretty nice addition there. The Lions also had some other guys that outperformed better than I expected. But I am going to say that my running back choice is CMC. The PPR cheat code is back. And the reason I'm going with him specifically this week is he scored 27.7 fantasy points. He had 98 yards rushing, and he had 9 receptions for 89 yards. So he was 2 yards and 11 yards shy of 100 a day. He didn't score a touchdown and still had 27 fantasy points. That is a good day. And that's why I call him the cheat code, because if he has days like that where he doesn't even have to score a touchdown, but he can still ball out for your team, that's a guy that you want to have. And that's a guy worthy of the first overall pick in most of our leagues. So welcome back, Christian McCaffrey, coming back off that injury. We didn't know what to expect. That's why he's a boom this week.
I think a huge upside for him is if he can still stay in the passing game. If he can be a threat to the DBs and everything that's not necessarily expecting him, that's going to be just huge for him. I think everybody is ready for him to run with the ball, but if he can drop back and get some passes thrown his way, that's going to just be way more points.
And he is very good at catching out of the backfield.
Right.
My running back bust of the week is a guy that didn't necessarily score the least amount of points. He ended up with a total of 5.9 points. But it's a guy that came in with a lot of hype. Even though he was a rookie, he came in with a lot of hype and a lot of expectations. And that's Naji Harris. This is a dude that everyone is expecting a lot from. Of course, the Steelers still won the game. He didn't cost them a win or anything like that. They traveled into Buffalo, beat Buffalo at home, which is remarkable in and of itself. But Naji Harris didn't really contribute the way that the Steelers need him to contribute going forward. We've talked about it. Other people have talked about it. When Big Ben is the most successful, it's when he has a solid running back by his side. If the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to hope to be a winning team this year, they need Naji Harris to step up. He was my bust this week.
Absolutely. And this was a guy that I was ready to draft in our league. He didn't fall to me, so I ended up picking my bust for the week, which is Aaron Jones. And we talked about it a little bit before whenever we talked about the Packers just being a bust as a whole. 4.2 points with 9 yards is just not going to do it for an RB1 that was taken in almost probably every league in the first round. It's just terrible. I expect a lot more from him. Even if Aaron Rodgers is going to throw a fit all year, I think you can still feed the rock to Aaron Jones. I hope he can pick it up. I hope he can brush off whatever issues are happening. And boy, I mean, he definitely needs to pick it up, because this is a guy who, like you said, had a great year last year. I don't really see anything different. I don't, as far as I know, they haven't really lost anything with the offensive line. So there should be no issue with him being able to run. Got to do a little bit better than this for sure.
Yep, absolutely. For a wide receiver, the boom player that I had this week is a guy that we recommended on C2C when one of the guys commented and asked a start him, sit him question, and they gave a scenario of 3 wide receivers to plug into their wide receiver 2 hole, and we unanimously said Adam Thielen. He's the guy that you plug in here. Once again, we told you so. 30.2 fantasy points, 9 catches for 92 yards, 2 touchdowns. Adam Thielen, he's going to be a monster in fantasy this year because everyone's so scared of the other guy across the field, Justin Jefferson.
Yeah, definitely. My boom at wide receiver this week is Tyler Lockett. DK Metcalf didn't have a great game, wasn't too awful, but Tyler Lockett was able to steal a little bit away from DK Metcalf. He got 26 points, 4 receptions, 100 yards, and 2 touchdowns. This is a guy that, people understand that he's a good wide receiver, but I think the eyes there are obviously on DK Metcalf, and he came out better this week than Metcalf did. So that was a big boom for me. I definitely didn't expect him to do as well as he did, but if teams decide to start potentially double teaming Metcalf, this could be good for Tyler Lockett.
Yeah, I had to play against Lockett in one of my leagues this week, so I was watching him rack up the points all weekend, and I was not a fan. My bust wide receiver, and Justin will be happy to hear me say this once again, is Julio Jones. This is a guy that was brought in to be a huge target acquisition. He got targeted 6 times, but only came down with 3 receptions for 29 yards, scored a total of 5.9 fantasy points. A lot of people drafted him, plugged him into their lineups, expecting a big boom out of him every week. Didn't quite deliver.
Yeah, I agree. My bust for this week at wide receiver is Justin Jefferson. This is a kid who lit it up last year as a rookie, obviously. And I kind of talked about it. If he gets double teamed, then Thielen's going to kind of pick it up. I didn't catch this game, so I don't know if he was double teamed or whatever. But nonetheless, he put up 12.54 points, 5 receptions, and 71 yards. That was a close game there for them and the Bengals. I guess he just wasn't necessarily a part of it as they might have hoped. That, or just maybe Adam Thielen was just open, and that was who Kirk Cousins decided to go to. Either way, I got to be happy about it because Thielen's on my team, and he did great for me.
Yeah, I'm sure. And to go along with your Swift boom from earlier, TJ Hawkinson of the Lions had a tremendous game. He had 25.7 fantasy points from the tight end position, 97 yards receiving, and 1 touchdown. You'll take that out of your tight end every week if you can get it. So TJ Hawkinson's an honorable mention on there for me as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think an dishonorable mention, let's say, at tight end for me is George Kittle. He put up 9.8 points, 4 receptions, 78 yards. This is, probably top 3 tight ends in the league.
And he was drafted as such. Yeah.
Yeah. And he did not do so great this week for a team who did well. I mean, San Francisco put up a lot of good numbers, and he just wasn't a part of it. So that sucks for anyone who drafted him early.
Yeah, Tyler saying Mike Evans put up 5.6. Yeah, we talked about them on Champ to Champ this past Saturday. Yeah, Mike Evans did not have the performance that a lot of people were hoping for, but that Bucs offense is going to be one it rotates a lot. So next week he may have 20 points. The week after, he back down to 7. It's going to be very hit or miss with a lot of these Bucs wide receivers going forward, just because they have so much talent to spread the ball to.
Yep.
Tyler also asked 49ers versus Eagles in week 2. Is that a matchup to look forward to, Zach?
Yeah, I think so. Surprisingly, that the Eagles are actually in that conversation of an exciting game. I think Jalen Hurts looked great. A lot of people were kind of questioning as to whether they liked him or not. I didn't catch that game. It wasn't on for me, but I mean, just looking at the numbers there, that was surprising. I think all of us picked or at least you and I picked the Falcons to win that game.
Yeah, we were wrong. Bad
call on that one, I guess. Just for whatever reason, the Falcons can never get it done. But yeah, I mean, the Eagles were able to capitalize on that just terrible defense.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see how that game goes. It'll let us know a lot about the Eagles because the San Francisco 49ers have a much better defense.
Yeah.
And they have an offense that looks like they can move the ball as well. We'll see if the Eagles defense is able to hold down the 49ers. But that again is why I'm so high on Tom Brady this week, playing against those same Falcons that got beat up by the Eagles.
Yeah, he's an immediate lock. I mean,
Yeah.
just book him in right now. He's going to be great.
And some of the other notable games coming up, we've got Patriots and Jets, which I've guaranteed a Patriots victory. So if you're gambling on this one, go ahead and hammer that one in before they adjust the lines. Broncos, Jaguars, that doesn't matter. Dolphins and Bills could be a good one. Rams and Colts could be a decent one. Raiders, which we'll watch later tonight, versus Steelers. Saints and Panthers. Ooh, that's
interesting.
That's another good one. Vikings, Cardinals, Titans and Seahawks, Cowboys, Chargers, Chiefs and Ravens, Lions and Packers. All right, so some pretty good matchups in week 2 that we'll be keeping our eye on, and we'll talk about some more next week. But Zach, let's shift gears a little bit now and move on over to Major League Baseball. Let's not forget our first love, and that is baseball. And the boys of summer are starting to wind down their season, and the playoff picture is really starting to come into focus a little bit. So let's take a look at the division leaders, and let's look at that wild card standings, because this is what it's all coming down to. And we're going to, in a few short weeks, know our playoff brackets and who's in, who's out. And you made a note in Sportszilla that there's a certain team in the National League that's only one game out of a wild card. So why don't we start with them and talk about the progress that the St. Louis Cardinals have been making?
Yeah, sure. And this was honestly quite a surprise to me. There was a skid there where they were losing games that they needed to win, and they got 3-4 games back. But they were able to really, scratch at that door to the wild card, and they won a series against the Reds, which was huge. I mean, that's one of the teams that they're, kind of fighting with to get that wild card spot. Nolan Arenado had a 2-run home run in back-to-back games, which was great. The pitchers were able to hold off those huge bats in the Reds lineup. It was great. I'm not going to really super celebrate just yet because we have a bit of a difficult stretch here. We play the Mets, then we play the Padres. It's going to be tough, but I think them being one game out is definitely interesting. I'm staying interested in the team. It's not, we're not waving the white flag yet, so we'll see what they do. It's nice to see them still compete and try to get something going, because this whole entire season has been rough for sure. There's been rough patches, injuries, obviously, but there's still some hope left. And I think there's, at least on the offensive side of things, there's still some players that do some great things. Obviously, Arenado's there, and Yachty hit a home run against the Dodgers. And that's another thing we can bring up too. Albert Pujols made his second appearance in Busch Stadium since his departure in a Dodgers uniform this time. And of course, the fans let him know that they still appreciate him and love him a lot. And he hit a home run here, and standing O for that, which is always kind of weird to see. But that was a fun little stand for people who remember, obviously, how great Pujols was here in a Cardinal uniform.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't that his second home run in Busch Stadium this year from 2 different teams?
I don't think he was here this year.
Was he not? Was it last year that he was there with the Angels?
2019.
Oh, it's been that long. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. I was thinking he was there earlier this year. So yeah, the Cardinals have made a run. The Dodgers are 16 games up on that wild card, so they've at least got the wild card on lock.
Oh yeah.
The battle is really between the Cardinals, the Reds, and the Padres for that second spot.
Right.
So it would be something to see them come and spoil it. The Giants are still ahead in the NL West by 2.5 games over the Dodgers, so they're cruising. They've pretty much almost they have a playoff percentage of 100% right now, so they are a lock for the playoffs.
You might not know this, but do they have a magic number yet?
I'm not seeing that listed on this website that I'm on, but I would say that it's starting to dwindle down.
To that.
They've at least clinched playoffs, as well as have the Dodgers, the Brewers. So those three teams have already clinched in the NL. So yeah, the magic numbers are starting to come into it to play. We'll definitely look into that and try to have that for next week.
Yeah, sure.
Other teams that are making a run at closing in on guaranteed playoffs, the Atlanta Braves are at almost 90% to close in on the playoffs. So they're going to likely win the AL or NL East as we predicted.
Yeah, at least they didn't prove us wrong. I mean, there for a while, the Mets were really holding on to that lead, and it was just kind of wild to see. But they finally woken up. Either that or the Mets have just fallen off.
Yeah, it's the Mets did fall off, even though they did have a pretty exciting series against the Yankees recently. I don't know how much you saw of that, but yeah, the Mets have now played themselves into a 500 team. They're 72-72 on the season right now, so they fell off from the pace that they were on, and it was to be expected. We didn't think they would sustain that long. Of course, we didn't think that the Giants would sustain this long either, but here we are.
That's true.
Over in the American League, the Tampa Bay Rays and the Chicago White Sox have already clinched their playoff berths. They haven't clinched their divisions yet, but that's coming soon. The Houston Astros are 99% chance of making the playoffs, so that's a pretty good lock. And in the wild card, it's gotten pretty interesting because right now, the Toronto Blue Jays and the Boston Red Sox are the two wild card teams. The New York Yankees have slipped to fourth place in the AL East and are half game back at the wild card. And we talked about it before we came online, but the Oakland A's have dropped down to 3 games back at that wild card now.
How great would it be if the Blue Jays get to play spoiler to the Yankees and the Yankees miss the playoffs?
That would be something, that's I remember back whenever we had the AL East episode and we had Stacy and Gabby on here, we were talking about it, and we said that the Toronto Blue Jays are sneaky good.
Oh, yeah.
They could be one of those teams that sneak in there that you might not expect coming. And then here we are in September, and they've crawled into a tie for the wild card with the Boston Red Sox and have leapfrogged the New York Yankees. This is a team that on kickoff Sunday, yesterday, outscored several NFL teams. They posted 22 runs yesterday. Did you see that?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I saw the post from ESPN or MLB or whoever it was. I mean, yeah, they outscored the Patriots, the Dolphins. That's insane.
A lot of other teams too.
That is a hot young team. I mean, they've got young names all over that team. And I think if they can address some of their pitching issues in the offseason, maybe sign a few guys, get some trades going or something, that's a very dangerous team.
Yeah, very much so. I'm very much so looking forward to these playoffs. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. There's only one October, and I'm here for it. I'm definitely excited. We'll be keeping tabs on that a lot more as the playoffs start to really come into focus and we get into it. I'm surprised that the Red Sox are hanging on right now. They've got, I think, 12 guys that have tested positive for COVID. So they've got minor leaguers that weren't even expected to get called up for the next 2 years, now all of a sudden filling in a role on the team because MLB is still making them go out and play these games.
Oh yeah.
It's kind of weird. They were letting other teams, skirt by and postpone games. I guess because it's end of season, they don't have time to do that anymore. So they're like, oh, you've got to play them or forfeit them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's rough. And what a terrible time to have a COVID outbreak in the team.
But they've been doing, fairly well. In the last 10, they're still 500. They're 5-5. The Yankees, who are at full strength, are 2-8 in their last 10.
Yeah, there you go. that just shows you what is going on in the AL East. A lot of people have almost assumed, at least at the beginning of the year. You remember, I think it was that first Sunday Night Baseball where Vasgersian was just going crazy for Aaron Judge and just all that ridiculousness. People kind of assumed that at least the Yankees were going to make it in the playoffs, and I don't see it, especially if the Blue Jays can keep this up. They're going to take that wild card spot. The Yankees losing to the Mets was just not obviously good for them, just even record wise. So yeah, I think that team definitely still has some issues. you can't rely on people hitting the long ball every single time. You got to have some other aspect of the game.
Yep. Yeah, the Blue Jays are 9-1 in their last 10. They're definitely one of the hottest teams in the league, and it could come to pass that the New York Yankees miss the playoffs. And if that happens, I can almost guarantee that Aaron Boone will be out of a job.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was just about to ask. If the Yankees miss the playoffs, does Aaron Boone have a job? I think he gets fired by winter.
Yeah, I think he's fired before he even gets down the dugout stairs.
I haven't necessarily paid a lot of attention to the Yankees this year, but I have paid attention to Twitter, and a lot of Yankees fans are complaining about Aaron Boone's decision making, and a lot of people are questioning what he's doing with his bullpen and stuff like that. I mean, especially for that kind of culture, he has to produce, and
Yep.
I think he hasn't, obviously, so it's time for him to go.
Yep, absolutely. Tonight we have Monday Night Football. Of course, we talked about it a little bit earlier, the Ravens at the Raiders. This is the first game in the Raiders' new stadium with fans in attendance, so that'll be pretty exciting to see. I saw a little blurb. I'm not really sure of the sources or anything, but it said something about the Raiders fans are boycotting the team's decision to make them show proof of vaccinations and stuff like that. So that might be a special area to pay attention to in the pregame, which is kicking off now. And anything you're looking forward to in this game other than Williams not scoring a lot of points against you?
Right. I'm definitely interested to see this new dynamic that they have with Peyton and Eli Manning. See how that kind of plays out. I'm hoping that's entertaining because, I mean, as of late, John Gruden was on Monday Night Football for a while, and he was John Gruden. So obviously he's back to coaching now. So I think an entertaining Monday Night Football broadcast is needed. Of course, anybody will watch Monday Night Football because it's the only football game on Monday, obviously. So what else are you going to watch unless baseball's on? But I think if they can have an interesting dynamic, and I think Peyton's a very smart guy, and I know he's obviously a very smart football mind. So I think if those two can kind of come together in an entertaining way and maybe bring something to light that we might not know, because obviously they have a lot of insight, being former quarterbacks, obviously themselves, and Super Bowl winners. I mean, they're obviously Hall of Famers. Obviously Peyton just got inducted, but I'm sure Eli is not too far behind him.
You think?
Yeah, probably. Maybe not first ballot, second ballot, but I think he'll make it in there simply because of his Super Bowl wins. Anyway, I think if they can make an entertaining product, then that'll be good for Monday Night Football, because I haven't really enjoyed many of the talking heads that they've kind of gone through on that show.
I agree.
I grew up with John Madden and Al Michaels, and that was really awesome. But I mean, those days are long gone. So hopefully they can be entertaining for Monday Night Football. And I think that'll maybe bring a lot of more casual eyes to the sport. Because like I said, I think a lot of football fans are going to watch whatever product is out there because that's the game on for Monday night.
Yeah. And I was talking to Harvey about that a little bit. I told him about the Manning brothers making their ESPN Monday Night Football broadcast or whatever they're calling it. And he had no clue about it. And he was like, that's a good thing. I think Peyton Manning needs to be more involved in football.
Yeah.
This is a guy that I could see as the future commissioner of the league. He needs to be more involved in football activities, calling games and stuff like that, and less doing these silly commercials and stuff like that he likes to do. I know that pays the bills, and by all means, Peyton, get your paper, but this is where I think he's going to shine. He's a hilarious individual. He can be very, very funny. And I think whenever he's on a hot mic with his brother, I think they're going to be hysterical together. That's something that I am looking forward to as well. Also, like I said earlier, I'm looking forward to Lamar Jackson not scoring 39 or more points. That would be wonderful for me in fantasy football. I won't be here next week. I'll be gone. So Zach's going to be running the show. So chances are you'll have him and someone else. I'm not sure who. And they'll be kicking it next week and probably the week after as well. I'm going on a much needed vacation. It's going to be very great. And I'll come back refreshed and rejuvenated and ready to kick it for another whole year of Nest podcasts and all that stuff. Please like, subscribe, share, help us reach a bigger audience, help us continue to grow and continue to develop this brand. We appreciate all the comments. We appreciate everyone who's been listening and watching along, and we'll see you next week. Peace.